right. So, welcome to another episode of Business Acceleration Playbook, where we're bringing you the plays that you need to win in your business. And I am here with Tim Kroll.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
I forgot to mute my stuff, so I'm doing that real quick before we
That's
actually get
okay.
into it.
Very good. You're good. So, today I wanted to talk a little bit about the tools for small businesses. And the reason that I decided to kind of chat about that was because I keep getting so many questions on like what I use. Hi, Facebook user. I don't know who you are, but hi. Like on what Hi Wise on what we use to do different things, right? So I felt like it was important to do a show on tools that every small business needs. And I know whenever I message you, hey, give me your favorite tools. At first you sent back something super high level, which I love that. And I really want
Well,
to be
the
able
reason why I
to
did that, we teach a class, and it's in the it's called Leadership Otsego County, and Mark and we actually teach this class every year. It's the second year, and it's an incredible class. And I love being able to do that. But the title of the class is Tools in Your Toolbox. And one of the instructions that we give everybody is we need you to bring the tools that you use. What is it that you get through your business and stuff? And I'm always amazed at the tools that they bring. In fact, one year we had somebody actually bring a little thing of whiskey from like Fireball whiskey. Like that's my tool. That's what I get used to.
Got me through.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to me to see what kind of tools people bring, and the fact of, and this is it's hard to define. When you say these are the tools that I'm going to use for my business, it's kind of hard to define and narrow it down because we've got businesses all over the place. And then how do we actually say, okay, for an e-com business, these are the tools that you need. For a service-based business, these are, and so that's why. Sorry for the long drawn out explanation, but it's like that. There's a lot of different business. Like where are we at?
That was a compliment. That really was. Cause like, oh, you know what? That hits it from a different angle than what I was originally thinking. It's funny because sometimes I forget like, hey, I need to come up with a topic for this show. And then somebody will text me something. And I ended up getting more than one message and emails on different people. Hey, what do you use for this? Or hey, what do you use for that? And I'm like, hey, idea, ding, ding, ding. And that's where tools came from. So I was thinking about it at first from a very tangible, hey, I use, a CRM because of this, or I use, this for this. But I actually like adding in your angle because I think it's very important because yes, there are lots of service tools and stuff that you can use to kind of shortcut lots of things in your business, right? Automate lots of things. But I also think it's important to think about other types of tools as well. So I'm actually glad that you said that. So that was actually a compliment. I was complimenting.
Oh, well, it's just a weird, like I said, it's a weird way. And that's why we do this is because we both come at it from different angles and, we interact with different people and we have different perspectives. And then quite frankly, I just don't like being put in a little box. So it's like, okay, the tools that I'm using right now are not necessarily the tools I was using previously. And then I find something that comes out and I know we've had conversations about AI and all of the other things that are coming out, but there are certain times, and I feel like we're in that time with Chat GPT that's going to totally change a lot of what we do as far as within our business. It's going to make some things obsolete. It's going to bring to the forefront. What's that?
Have you used it yet?
Not to the depth that I need to, so I don't understand it.
I haven't used it yet. It's kind of one of those things. It's. I think I'm waiting and watching for everybody else to use it, so they can tell me if it's worth me even trying to learn one more thing. That's my thing.
I have a training scheduled. I have my own personal training scheduled, and I'm actually going to go through it with a guy, kind of like step by step in about 5 to 6 days or so.
Oh, good. You can let me know.
Yeah, because I am curious. I'm curious about what it's going to do.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I think there is definitely a balance between, I mentioned I am a creature of habit. It's weird. I like to try new things and I get very excited about new things, except with like software or things like that. Yeah. I don't get excited about that. I don't want to relearn them. I get very much kind of stuck in my ways. Like, no, this is good enough. I don't want to learn something else. So
the other thing with software for me personally is I forget what I learned. It's that way with Adobe. All of your AI. I'm sorry, when I say AI, Adobe Illustrator. I know we're talking different AIs, but Adobe
Yeah.
Illustrator, Photoshop, those kinds of things. I mean, that's a tool. However, I get extremely frustrated on using any of it because I forget, like, where's that stupid click button,
Yeah.
whatever. I get, ugh. Anyway.
I like Adobe. I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem. Well, I say Adobe. I do not do well with like Adobe Edition. Like me and Stacy Price were talking earlier about that. That for whatever reason, like my brain does not want to retain the how to on certain things, and that's one of them. I watched the videos, and this has been years ago when I first started trying to learn like audio editing. I did not retain it, right? And so I'm like, this time I just tried to learn it again because I'm like, well, this time I've learned a lot more in the space. I'll retain it. Nope. There's just sometimes there's some things maybe you're not meant to do. I just feel like the universe has told me this is not for you, Maria. So
Yeah.
anyway, that being said, there are some tools that I have always used, not necessarily because maybe there aren't other ones out there, but that's because Maria is a creature of habit and I do not want to use new ones. But I do want to kind of touch on some of the ones that you sent me first from that other angle, though, because I think that's important to kind of mention in
Okay.
detail.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want me to start with that? Is that
Yeah,
what the
yeah,
deal was? Okay.
yeah,
So one of the things that we start with and what we talk about is the understanding that if you're going to make a decision in your business, you have to have the right mindset. And that mindset actually becomes a very powerful tool. Uh, Shoot, I mean, you have to process all of this information, you have to process the data, and then you have to come to a conclusion. And so the reality is you have to think of you as an individual as probably the greatest tool that you're going to have in any of the business. And that crosses all industries, it crosses all services or products or whatever. It crosses everything because at the end of the day, it does rest on you as the entrepreneur, as the owner, CEO, manager. I don't care what role you're in, but it comes down to how are you refining you as your own tool. So that then leads into several different components. One is the ability to be able to set the foundation, which is your values, the understanding that these are things that I am not willing to compromise. And when you have the value, that allows you to have stability in your company. And then it also gives you the platform through which you can make decisions. I know I was coaching and counseling or consulting with a company, and they were struggling over whether they should have a dress down day or whatever you guys want to call it in your business. Is like, okay, so do we do like jeans day? Do we do sweatshirts? Do we allow sweatpants on this dress down? Like, what is it that we do? Because on one hand, we've got brand and culture and image, and then on the other hand, we're like, okay, how do we actually tie in what our employees are asking for to make sure that we fit with the brand? So that's a decision. If you don't have values and foundations established, it's really hard because you'll flip back and forth between those two good things and maybe not make the right decision because you don't have your values. So that's the first thing is the values. The second thing, and I mean, that's just a big example. That applies to your own personal life, feeling unfulfilled, not wanting to get up, not wanting to go into work, not wanting to accomplish tasks. And then the other thing that I talk about, and I have to bring it back to the building blocks, which is leading yourself, and the 4 pillars of growth, which is your physical, taking care of your body, taking care of your mental, the spiritual, the social, which we've talked about previously, but that is your tool. I mean, like that, you have to be able to have things there because if you're not well, if you're not healthy, if you're not performing, the number one tool is going to be rusted in your box before you even get out of the gate. And that's why I talk more about when I come to the toolbox, I'm like, okay, what is that? What are you doing to refine yourself, sharpen your skills, and to show up every day to be able to say, this is my most valuable tool is your own, is yourself.
100%. Well, and I know that's something we talk about a lot, and we've actually done multiple shows on that. And the only reason I was like, yes, let's go ahead and hit that angle too, because I wasn't thinking that when I first said tool, although
Mhm.
that is the foundational tool set, right? So that's the reason I wanted to go ahead and hit on that, is because that is always going to be the most important tool set, because it doesn't matter what service, tool
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever that you get. If you don't have that foundational tool set right, you're going to be wasting your time and money, right? So I
Oh,
I wanted
yeah,
to say that, I wanted you to go ahead and kind of hammer it in, haha, hammer again tool. I
yeah.
wanted you to go ahead and hammer that in from that angle, because it is so important to realize that our foundational tools are, you know, foundational, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I don't, is there anything,
let
go
me
ahead.
add one more thing to that because I think these are part of it. It's like that's the first foundational. The second thing then is to think of it, and I do like the EOS system. There's a couple others out there called the growth wheel. There's things that we use as tools to analyze where you stand in your business. So first is you foundational. Second is how you're actually analyzing some of those things. And so, for example, EOS, it talks about, who's your customer, what is your vision, who are you marketing to, what is your purpose, what are the processes that are set in place. So foundation. The second one is what is the way that you analyze your business to be able to go about. And again, those are high level thinking. And a lot of times, and I've seen this a lot, especially in service businesses where, let's say you got laid off or you needed extra money or whatever, and you decided to start this business, and then you jump into it, and then you're really good at that thing. You're really good at whatever that service is, but you don't necessarily think about all the business concepts and the foundations. And then the question, like what you just said, is people start asking, well, oh shoot, now I'm in a situation. I don't know how to keep track of my customers. I don't know how to process payments. I don't know how to, like, there's a lot of things like that that are, I'll call them in the weeds tools, which are really good and helpful. But without that, the other components, you're going to just kind of be spinning your wheels trying to find, well, I'm going to jump from one thing to the next thing, and miss the greater purpose of what your business is doing.
Well, and I think that the tools that we can purchase to utilize, they amplify that deeper foundational tool set.
They do.
So, and I think that's why, I like kind of the way that we've kind of restructured the original plan for the show, because I think it's more important to really talk about hammering in those foundational tools and making sure you have that right. And then here's a tool that can amplify that foundation. And here's a tool that can amplify this foundation.
100%.
Because you have to have those pieces in place. And I think a lot of people have talked about tools, and that was why at first I was like hesitant, but I mean, getting those questions on a regular basis, that's obviously still questions that people have. So I felt it was an important topic. However, I think maybe the reason that they keep having those questions is because they've not taken it and added that into that foundational tool. They've not made that connection that it anchors in to this foundational tool.
Yes. Let me give you a good example of this, because I've been in sales, and we're going to jump into the sales aspect just to get a good understanding why this is so important, right? So my very first introduction into sales was in-home sales. And my job as the window sales guy was to close the deal that night. I had one shot. I walked into the family's home. We went through this whole process, and it was a system that we had to follow and use. They also then gave us additional tools. So once we went through the system explaining what the windows were, what they could do, blah, 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 all the features, benefits, and the whole 9 yards, the next set of tools that they gave us were closing tools. Now, if you have ever been into any car dealership, if you've been into any business that has commission-based sales individuals, they will know 90% of these close techniques that they use. And some of it is what they call the puppy dog close. That's a tool. So what they do, and this is just part of being a sales, is they will actually allow you to take the product home to try it, use it. Cars are really big at this. Like, hey, just take it home for a week, because they know they increase. It's like a puppy dog. I don't want a dog. I don't want a dog. I don't want a dog. You take the dog home. Next thing you know, you've got a dog, right? That's the idea, is that if you take possession of that, that's about 90% of ownership, which means that you're higher likely to close. That's just one technique. They got a Benjamin Franklin close where they actually weigh out the numbers and out the costs and the monthly costs. And then there's what they call the husband-wife close, which is the worst manipulation tool I've ever seen, where they actually pit the husband against the wife, and then they say, well, the wife really wants it. And then they look at the husband, it's like, when you guys got married, what'd you do? Well, I did everything for her already. And then you come out with the, well, what changed? And then, oh man, I talk about some mad people. I'm like, ooh, so those are tools, right? You can use those tools, but if they go against the values, the foundations that you set, now you've got a conflict, because you haven't set the values. So you could choose to use that tool, that closing tool, manipulate people into sales, and you lose the relationship. You lose the second sale. You lose a long-term customer. You lose your referrals. You lose like all of these things that you're sacrificing to be able to close that deal on the first night. because you didn't have the foundation set. And so that's why the question sometimes comes up. Now, that's an extreme. Obviously, the CRM is not going to be like that. But I wanted to use an extreme example because it shows there's a lot of tools out there that shouldn't probably be used, but they're effective in closing. They're effective in getting a sale. But what are you burning? What are you losing? And are you willing to sacrifice that?
Well, and I think a lot of people, they'll get the tool, um, because they think it's gonna fix all the problems that they've not addressed.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I guess a good example of that would be from kind of a real world example is, New Year's rolls around, you wanna get healthy, well, you go join a gym. You don't go, but you join it, right? Are you gonna get healthier, right? You still eat the same. Are you gonna get
Yeah.
healthier? You haven't made any changes. You haven't addressed the root causes. You've just gone and paid for a gym membership. Is that gym membership going to fix your problems? No, just like that CRM you're paying for is not going to fix the problems of analyzing how you're doing your sales positioning or how you're doing
Yeah,
any of
exactly.
your marketing, right? It's not going to fix the problem. You have to address your needs at a foundational level and address the problems. And then you can properly use that tool to make that solution to the problem easier. And I think I fell into some of those things too, not so much of like, but I mean, I've got into like, I'll get sucked into like, oh, this tool does this and this. And I'm like, oh, I need that. Right. And then I'll get it, but then I'll forget that I got it. So I never learn
Yeah.
it or never use it and don't even remember until I see another thing about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to check that out. And then I get down there like, you have an account and I've been paying for this account, right? That I didn't even know I had because I didn't do the first job of figuring out, okay, why do I need this? Am I going to learn this? Is it really going to, be a solution? There has to be levels to this. So with that said, I do want to mention some tools that are great to use, assuming that you've done kind of the deeper work
Yeah.
of, tying that in foundationally, right? So I don't know if you want me to kind of start out with that or
Yeah.
you
Go
want
ahead. Go ahead. I've talked a
okay.
lot this time.
Well, you mentioned CRM. I love CRMs. Now, I know I love HubSpot. You're not a mega HubSpot fan. I think
So,
I love
Maria,
it.
what does CRM stand for?
Customer retention management.
Okay.
So I think that with HubSpot, for me, why I like it goes back to what I said earlier is I'm a creature of habit. It is the first CRM of that kind that was multi-purpose. And I was able to do multiple things with it, where it took several different services that I did have and put it into one. So there are a lot of them out there that a lot of people love, and I've not seen any major problem with any of them. But I do think it's important that every business has some type of a CRM set up. I mentioned HubSpot because that's what I've used. I don't remember which one is it that you liked. Oh, sorry, you're coughing. Guess that was a bad time to ask you.
Yeah, you caught me right in the middle of a cough. I use Nimble. I have used Goldmine. I've used Salesforce. I've used I think that's all. But right now, the one that I really like the most, especially if you're looking at a small business, you want something that's relatively reasonably priced. Nimble, I think it's under $20 a month, and it's not really that much. So that's the one that I prefer, especially on a smaller scale. Now, if you're looking and growing and doing more, HubSpot might be the way to go. But yeah, I like Nimble.
I had never heard of him. I couldn't even remember the name of it until you said it. But I mean, I think the point on that is not to necessarily say, you have to go with Nimble or you have to go with HubSpot. But I
Right.
do think it's important for you to have some type of a CRM. So, that is definitely a tool that every business needs, especially small businesses. You have to have some type of a CRM in place. It's so important to be able to have all your customers in one place and to really have a way to keep notes. I think that would be my thing, is to say, like, no matter what CRM you use, make sure that it has the ability to not only store the customer's information, but also to put in their notes to where, hey, I talked to Tim, today at 1 o'clock, and he said to give him a call back next Monday. And it's even better if you've got the ability to be able to kind of put that in your calendar from there. I like to be able to integrate mine in with my emails too. And I'm sure lots of CRMs have that ability. HubSpot
Yeah.
has that ability where it pulls all my emails from that person into their account. It just makes it so much easier for me. That way I'm not searching through my emails to try to find what we said when. So,
Right.
no matter
The other
which
thing
one, go ahead.
I want to say, see, the other thing I would add to it is you're going to want to look for a CRM that, for example, the home service business, the home service industry. I probably would not recommend HubSpot or Nimble for either one of those, simply because the home service industry has at least two or three. And I was actually just doing a quick search because I always forget what they are. But House Call Pro, Service Fusion, there's a couple of different ones in here. I know Kurt Schilling has a couple of them that he's done personally. And they incorporate some invoicing. They incorporate some API type stuff where there's a lot of different things. So also look inside of your industry to make sure that
Absolutely.
somebody else is actually using that CRM effectively in that style or in that industry, because there's different needs for different industries.
That's a good point because I know I use HubSpot for my consulting marketing business, but in my wellness business, I have to use a HIPAA compliant CRM.
Yeah.
So I can't use HubSpot for my, client notes and all that kind of stuff. That's very personal information. So, I mean, that's a good point to make, but it is important no matter what industry to have a CRM, but to look and see what specifically meets your own needs. I love that. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Another thing that I think you had mentioned, I don't even remember what you mentioned. What was the other thing you
Oh,
mentioned?
mine was, so my five were the CRM, the calendar, the education, a proper, I said proper listing, but I don't know what I meant by that. And then networking. Oh, proper listing was your actual day-to-day to-do list. That's what that proper listing was. So priority listing, making sure that you're working on the right things, kind of a thing. Those were my five that I had. And again, they're not very specific, but they
Okay. Well,
can
what
be.
was your number two? What was your number two after
Number two
CRM?
is the calendar, time
Okay.
blocking.
So
So I
yeah,
use Google
I
because
do
I
too.
honestly live and die by Google Calendar. I have it set up on my phone, so it comes right to here. I got reminders here. And if I
Mhm.
have this muted, it's actually on my calendars, on my computer here. So things will pop up. I have it like in multiple areas because I forget. I mean, like I just cannot. And then there's two ways that I use that. One is to schedule the time, and I won't, it's not even just scheduling appointments with people. I'll actually put in my calendar to do specific tasks. And then that way I know like it allows me to get into that one task. And then I know I'm not going to be bothered by other interruptions or calls or something like that. Now I give myself freedom to move that around, but I do schedule things like that into my calendar itself, and reminders too. Also, reminders are a big one.
Yeah, well, and I think that it's important to have some type of a calendar system, and ideally, you have one that has kind of that workspace ability to do multiple things. Because the goal is to have fewer tools that do more things, but you want them to do them appropriately too. So, I think that, yeah, Google's my favorite. I know a lot of people still use Outlook, and I'm biased against Outlook, but if that's your thing, then, that's fine. It's never been one that I'm a fan of, but I also started using Google within my own business, more thoroughly. I'd only used Microsoft very little when I
Yeah, I
worked for
don't.
other people.
I'm not big on
So,
Microsoft
it's
either.
not my,
I'm
I'm not a fan.
yeah. Well,
So,
but it does incorporate just like, but it. I mean, they work off the same premise. So your Google,
mhm.
you have your drives and you have
Yeah,
your calendars and your clocks and all that kind of stuff that you can. You even have Hangouts, although I don't really use Hangouts. Microsoft has Teams, and then they've got
yeah.
file sharing, and they've got like you can still do that kind of as long as you're integrated and you're able to share quickly. That's the key.
That's yeah, exactly. So I mean, I do have people that are very much still very hard Microsoft Outlook people.
Yeah,
And, that's fine as long as again it's fulfilling that need of being able to have, a calendar, a way to schedule, a way to kind of organize things and ideally, looping more things into one. Um, and what was your number three? I'm never gonna remember more than one thing at a time.
that's all right. Education. So like for example, and I literally have books everywhere, but
Mhm.
I just got these two books in. This one is the Eat the Frog. I've got this one at Creative Calling, and I've got
I
another
think
one.
I've read Eat the Frog. I
I
think.
have not, so this will be a new one. So like the educational aspect of that,
Has
I
it
think
been
it's
out for a long time?
I don't know.
'Cause if I
Let
read
me
it, it
see
was
here.
one
Hang
I
on.
read if I read it, it was one I read 15 plus years ago. If it's not been out that long, I've not read it.
Well, it's a Brian Tracy one, so I think it's 2007. So yeah, it's been out for a while.
Okay. So yeah, I've read that one then. I
Yeah,
thought
I
it was
haven't. I mean,
I
then
might get it and read it again.
I've got Traction here, which is the EOS system, and then I've got a full book. The important thing is, and I've talked to a lot of guys about the way that they learn. And I get frustrated with our educational system because a lot of times they teach fish how to climb trees, and fish don't need to
Mhm.
climb trees. So you have to kind of really dial in and say, okay, how is it that you learn? I've got one guy, he will never read a book, but he'll consume almost a book a week via audio. And to me, that's unfathomable because I can't retain the information when I listen to it like that. I have to read it, then I can retain it. But that's the way
Yeah,
he learns.
my husband's like that. My husband listens to books and does better retaining them like that. If he reads them from an actual book, he has to have complete quiet, he says, and he will end up rereading it over and over. But if he listens to it, he retains it.
Yeah.
So, and it depends with me. I like having both. My ideally for me, I get the hard copy and the audio copy, and I go back and forth between them because sometimes I prefer to have the hard copy, but I want to be able to have the ability to listen to it in the car too. So
Yeah.
I'm like
And
an
that's
author's dream. I buy two for every book. I'm
it's
that kind of
got it. You
lady.
gotta, yeah. Well, just get Audible. You'll be fine.
I
But
haven't.
you've got to be able to find a way that's going to challenge and really allow your mind to step into what I would consider critical thinking.
Mhm.
Too often we just accept, and you can see this in our society, people just accept whatever is said as the absolute. And I, there are some things obviously that are absolute, but we need to get back to critical thinking. I think it's probably one of the it's a lost art. I mean, it's something that we
Yeah.
just do not, we just blindly accept, and that's just how it is. And I cut the ends off the ham just like my mom did, even though she did it to make it fit in the pan, kind of a thing, right?
Mhm.
So you have to develop that educational spirit to be able to constantly be learning, growing, and increasing your skill sets as far as what is out there.
Absolutely. Well, and when you're talking about education, there are so many options out there to educate yourself now. Used to, there wasn't a lot, right? There was books, there was college classes. You might be able to find like some night classes somewhere to take some type of course. But now with the internet and there's so many educational sites that are geared toward hobby learning. There's ones that are geared towards, professionals. I have some things that I have to do, CEUs on. So like I feel like I'm consistently learning, which works for me because I like to
Yeah.
be learning all the time. But there's LinkedIn has their own, learning side. There's what is that? Udemy
Yeah.
has,
YouTube. I
learning.
mean, YouTube,
YouTube.
you can almost
Yep,
get a college education out of that. I mean, not really, but
absolutely. So, well, I mean, the thing is though, is that education has actually changed and how we educate ourselves has actually changed, and we can get into how education hasn't actually changed along with it yet. However, the point of that is if you're a small business owner and there's something that you want to learn, the sky is the limit, and you can actually learn so many things free or very very low cost. And just like I was mentioning earlier about sometimes learn it and you figure out you're not learning it, you're not retaining it, and then you still pay somebody to do it anyway because there are still going to be those things that don't fit in with what you want to do and what your passions and desires are, and that's okay. But I think education is a huge part of being a successful entrepreneur and a successful business owner. And I think sometimes we can accidentally get so busy in our day to day that we forget how important it is to always be learning because
yeah.
things change, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the right time for it, but I feel like we have to issue, like, I don't know if you want to put it across the screen, like caution, warning, like buyer beware. Like it's got to be big because, and here's why. After about 10 years in the ecom space, I have watched what would be classified as a guru or a coach market out this done for you system that's going to make you $1 million, and it doesn't. If it looks too good to be true, I mean, it probably freaking is.
Yeah.
Anytime that I see something that says, hey, 3 easy whatever, dude, that's not nothing's easy. It's like
No.
there's not an
Yeah.
easy and there's not a quick. Neither one of those things are true.
Well, and I think those things are like the business version of the lottery. It's not that they don't happen, but when they do, it's just as often as somebody hitting the lottery, right? So it's not something you should bank on. It's not something you should gravitate your business plan on. I had a conversation with a lady. She had seen something on Facebook, that same thing. Like, somebody was making $29,000 a month doing something on Amazon. And she knew I had done some stuff on Amazon and she wanted to talk to me about it. And I was like, can you make $29,000 a month by selling erasers on Amazon? I mean, people do. Is it the norm for people to make 20,000 or $29,000 a month selling erasers on Amazon? No, you have to look at it as a whole. Hypothetically, let's say that there's 20,000 people selling erasers on Amazon. There's not 20,000 people making $29,000. There's a lot that goes into that. So that's like
Yeah.
the
It's a
business
lot of
version.
work.
It's a lot of work, and sometimes I don't like to bank on luck, but and I don't like to say luck, but sometimes it is luck, right? It is like you get in there at the right time, at the right moment, have the right product, and
Yeah.
everything kind of aligns, and you happen to hit that quote unquote lottery. So it's not that it can't happen. It's just not a tangible business plan. It's not a tangible goal to say, hey, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing. I'm going to sell erasers on Amazon and for $1.29 each, and I'm going to make $29,000 a month. If that's what you want your goal to be, that's great, but I wouldn't bank on it, right? Because that is literally the business version of the lottery. So it's yeah, I mean, I'm right with you on that. I think it's important to realize that there's a lot more kind of behind the scenes to a lot of those stories that we hear.
Yes. Yes.
And yes, sometimes it's lots of work, lots of failure. They didn't tell you the, 4,000 times that they bought lots of product and sold none of it, went in the hole. They don't tell you that. Or they didn't tell you
That's
that it
the
just,
MLM thing.
yeah, exactly. Right.
I mean, I'm not. I will never knock multi-level marketing because it's a legitimate marketing plan.
Mhm.
What I will knock is the fact that they try to sucker you in with these videos with all of these fancy cars and big yachts and golf on the Hawaiian border of whatever. I mean, like that's what they get you in with, is like, you can live this life and you can have all of this time freedom. And the reality is it takes a lot of work to motivate and keep your downline motivated and to continue. It's not a bad one. It's just, man, it takes a lot of work.
Well, it's not just MLMs that do that though. That is
Yeah,
the
no, you're
same
right.
story in the entrepreneurship world. Because I can remember when I decided to kind of breakout of I had been freelancing for a while, and I don't know what I thought magically was going to happen when I changed my title from freelancer to, entrepreneur, small business owner, that I thought there was going to be this like magical moment where I'm just sitting by the pool with my laptop, right? And I'm doing all my business and making these millions of dollars by sitting by the pool on my laptop. But that was the mentality that was being shown everywhere when I started doing my business, was that, now you can work from anywhere with your laptop. That was a new thing, right? Now you can work from anywhere,
Yeah.
which you can work from anywhere, but it's still, that's not going to be your entire day. Unless again, you're hitting that business equivalent of the lottery from that end of entrepreneurship. There's going to be a lot of, failures, a lot of things you try that don't work, a lot of tweaks, a lot of pivots, a lot of days where you're like, should I even have done this? And I think that sometimes we can paint that picture from lots of different angles. So I think that's an important thing to realize. And I don't know how we got on this. We get very passionate about subjects, but it was from education. But I think that is important to say, because there are a lot of these educational things out there that I haven't watched them all, and some of them may be very good roadmaps or lists of things you can do to improve your business or whatever. But I do have a problem with, like you mentioned, some of the marketing that goes along with it, because yes, it does pull people in. It does initially get the attention, but I think it also sets an unrealistic expectation of the work involved. So when people are
Yeah.
committing to doing this, they don't really fully understand what they're committing to.
Yeah. 100%. So we can keep talking on this, but we've already gone down about
Yeah,
40
I
minutes
know.
of time.
So this is what we do, right? This is what we do. So okay, and so the next on your list for after education, got to
proper
do
listing,
some.
making sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time.
So
So just the
that's
priority.
not what I took from that. That's not what I was thinking you were meaning like proper listing, like your citations, like out in the
Oh
digital
no, yeah, I
space.
know, yeah, no. Proper
So
listing, as
okay,
in, how do you manage your day and making sure that you're getting the right stuff done.
okay, well, which is important, and there's a lot of things you can use to do that, which we kind of mentioned calendar already. Um, I use a couple of different apps depending on what I'm wanting to do. I don't just use one app for that.
Right.
Because I know some of my daily goals are obviously wellness based, or some of my, daily goals are involve family. So I have a different app for family. So I think, you have to look at kind of your life on that, figure out, where you're wanting to be, and figure out what are the tiny steps or the building blocks, as Tim likes to say, that you need to have to get there. And then, make your to-do list based on that. So yeah, I like that one. What's the next one?
Last one is network, which is people.
Network. So that's a good
Man, I
one.
tell you, I think that is again one of the biggest underestimated tools that you can have in your toolbox, and it is something that has to be developed. You don't just naturally fall into these really tight groups, and relationships take work. So I would start with, if you're like, dude, I don't even know where to start. I would start with number one is looking at what your local chamber has to offer. That some of them are really great, some of them are really bad. You're going to get both of those, but you need to at least start somewhere, and
Well,
then
and sometimes
go.
they're also just not a fit. Maybe not
Yes,
bad or
yes.
good, but maybe just not a fit, because I've seen that. And I've also seen it where it's not a fit, but then leadership changes and some things change and then it becomes a fit.
Yep. Yeah, so there's that. There's BNI group type things where you actually pay to get into one. The worst case scenario, man, make your own. I mean, seriously, just make your own. Plan to have coffee with the guy, gal, whoever, whatever. Maybe it's even a competing business too. You have coffee with them. You establish that because um, there's a lot to learn and there's a lot of business to go around. And if you're
Yeah.
living that way, you've got to develop that network. You've got to have it.
I love that you said that and mentioned about competitors, because that's always been something I've been passionate about, is the fact that there is plenty of business to go around. I don't want to work 24/7. And even
Yeah.
if I did, I couldn't serve all the people that need served. So, it's one of those things that I think, especially younger, and I don't mean younger just in age. I mean younger and just experience entrepreneurs. They get into that thinking, well, I have to keep so close, because
Yeah.
there's not enough business. I need more business. But the opposite is actually true, because, you mentioned earlier, just with that key foundational tool of you being the key foundational tool, that's also a key differentiator. Nobody else is you. So
Yeah,
the way that
exactly.
you're going to do
Exactly.
business is going to be different. And I know me and you have been talking now for I don't know how long we've been talking, a couple of years now. And there's a lot of things we have in common. There's a lot of things I feel like sometimes we can finish each other's sentences on. But there's a lot of things that we, differ on. And I think that, even between just us, like there's a lot of things that we can do exactly, the same for businesses, but there's so many differentiators that the way that you would do it is not the way that I would necessarily do it. The way that you would say it is not the way that I would necessarily say it. And that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is. I would say that there's a foundational aspect of this because the principles are going to be the same. So we've got 6,000 years of leadership principles, but you could say it. You could say the exact same thing that I say, but because of my experience, I can actually say it slightly different. Well, as your experience is going to say it slightly, and it's going to be received on a different level. And that's important too when you're looking at the network because you have the ability to have a perspective shift when you're looking at it from a different component. So yeah, it's definitely allow yourself to be challenged by people that don't agree with you.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge thing. I like I don't like arguments, but I do like if there's a disagreement, because I think a lot of times, and we can talk about this even as a society as a whole, that we look at disagreements as a negative thing, but disagreements are a great thing. Disagreements is how we learn. Disagreements is how we learn as a community, as a society, as humans. Disagreements allows us to not necessarily change our minds sometimes, but it allows us to at least see something from somebody else's angle. It allows us to learn empathy. It allows us to, be able to think outside of kind of our own experiences. And, I think it's very important as small business owners that we do have those disagreements. And if there are disagreements, really figure out where that person is coming from and why they feel that way. Why do they
Yeah.
do business like that? I'll give you a good example. I cannot stand cold calling and I cannot stand cold emails. And I have a friend and a pretty good contact that's what he does as a business. His entire business is cold calling. So obviously that's a very big like red flag, like Maria talks against it. Now I can say I appreciate the way he does it. I also can say it's not for me. Do I say it's not for anybody? No, I can't say that because he's had success in it, and there's his clients have had success with his method. So that does mean that there are times and places where that can be a good part of somebody's business, but it's not a good fit for me. But I'm just saying that to say that I like the conversations. We've had great conversations back and forth on why he feels it actually is a good part of marketing, a good part of sales,
Yeah.
even when you're trying to make actual true know, like, and trust, connections. And I appreciate his, I don't even want to say argument, his side of it, I guess, because it makes sense. It's still not a fit for me, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be, right? And I think that is where, as entrepreneurs and small business owners, we grow and at least our understanding that our way is our way and that's okay. And we can learn other ways and maybe we don't change our way of doing things and that's also okay. But maybe we decide, you know what? I want to try to do it this way. And there have been times where I've talked to somebody and they've suggested I tweak something and I decided to tweak it and it was better. You know what I mean? And I think that
Yeah.
there's lots of growth that can happen from networking. And I think the biggest caution I can say with networking is not to treat it like a genie in a bottle where they're just going to be like bringing you business, because I find that annoying.
Yeah, I know. I would completely agree with you. So, I mean, we kind of hit all the ones that I texted. Do you have ones that you wanted to go over?
The only other thing that I would say is I do think that social media is a great part of most businesses. I'm not going to say all, because I do know that there's some people that are like, no way, I will never do social media, and that's fine. But I do think it kind of piggybacks on the networking. It's really hard to, especially if you're a business that's not a hyper local business, you're a business that potentially has customers and clients anywhere and everywhere. Social media, and I don't care which one you choose, whichever one works for your industry, your
Right.
likes, dislikes, your personality, whatever. I could get into this works better for this works better for this. But the truth of the matter is if you're not going to use it and use it correctly because you don't like it, then it's not going to work anyway. So you're better off going with
Yeah.
one that you like. But that ends up being a way that you can create that know, like, and trust factor on a mass basis without having to, send cold emails and stuff. You're still able to provide a way for people to kind of get to know who you are, your personality, your likes, your dislikes, like all those things in a way that they feel like they get to know you. So it's almost kind of like warming up your potential leads. And also at the same time, it's pulling away the people that really don't connect with you because of your personality or, whatever, because they're not a fit. You're not a fit for them.
Yeah.
They're not a fit for
Yeah.
you. So I would add that in there because I think that is a huge asset for businesses, and it's free to use unless you do paid ads or whatever, but it's free to use and it's something that you can use for any industry that's out there.
Yeah. No, I have a love-hate relationship with social media because I hate having to be consistent on it, but I know that it's necessary. So it's kind of like one of those things. Is like, ugh.
It's your vitamins. Take your vitamins, Tim. It'll be fine.
What else do you have?
I feel like I could like name a bunch of things, but I will kind of just say that if you're somebody that's comfortable, this is kind of piggybacking again a little bit on social media, but if somebody that's comfortable making videos, make videos. And if you're uncomfortable with, going live or showing your face or, whatever, there's a million different ways that you can do videos that don't show your face. You can also practice. One of the things that I've actually had my clients do is to make a Facebook group and make it private and start going live into that group where they just have me or just for a while just have themselves. But then they kind of get over
Get
that
used to it.
fear. Yeah, they get used to it before they're adding people, and
Yep.
that really helps. And again, it's free to do a Facebook group, and if you have like one or two trusted people that Jeff jumped in and said, I love making videos that no one watches. Me too. We can talk about that all day. But no, it's seriously a good idea to get in there and try that. But that is an easy way of being able to again get people to really know who you are and get people to realize that, like with me, I make goofy funny videos. People that don't like goofy funny people, I am not a fit for them because I'm going to make lots of jokes. I make lots of jokes. I who I am as a person. And I would rather you figure that out before we get into a business deal together and you realize that I'm really sarcastic and that ends up being a problem at that point. I'd rather you know that ahead of time, be like, no, she's not a fit for me. That serves me, right? It serves you, serves
Yeah.
me, serves us all. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that video thing, that just made me think, Jeff, I think there was a, I don't know if it was a TikTok, Facebook reel, I don't know, whatever. But everybody's like, to those 2 fans that always watch my videos, thank you. That's okay.
Yeah. The funniest thing, it's actually sad and kind of disheartening yet funny because that's, again, I'm sarcastic, so I pour out my feelings and humor a lot. The ones that I spend the most time on, like really planning it out, really crafting
Yeah.
what I'm going to say with a goal, those are the ones that
Yeah.
get like 2 views. Now, if I'm just like feeling goofy and I hear this funny sound and I literally have zero plan, I just pick it up and mouth the words and do something goofy, that one just goes crazy. And I don't know why 100% of the time, but I think part of it is sometimes as business owners, we forget if we're using social media for business, social media is still social media. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes we can accidentally become too businessy on our social media because maybe, like you mentioned, you don't like to be on there anyway. You're just going to get on there. I'm going to get on there and check the box and do my business or do whatever. And I think sometimes we can accidentally fall into that of using it as a box checker just to get it done
Yeah.
without realizing the purpose for most people on social media is to socialize. So, there's 2 things that people usually do on social media, and one of them that is for most people is entertainment, right? So I think, I
Yeah.
mean, if I like dig apart why those are the ones that do better, it's probably because of what I just said. They're on
Well,
there because
yeah,
they want to be
in my
entertained.
situation, I've got such an eccentric, all over the place kind of. I mean, even here, I've got this Lego here, and then I've got a rock here, and then I've got a salt lamp and a feather, and I'm like, I am all over the place with what I like, and I don't know. I'm anyway.
Most people are, though. We're all layered. And
Yeah,
I know that a lot of people, they position themselves that they're not layered. And there's reasons to do that, right? If you're niching down or whatever. But if you kind of dial it all back, we are all very layered people.
yeah.
And I think that, I mean, it's okay. There's times to niche down and there's times to let the layers fly. So I think it's fine. I mean, I don't think that, like, when I'm looking at your background, I'm not like, I don't know who this person is. What is he like? Like, I don't understand. I don't feel
At
like
least
it's
I don't have a
that.
drum in the background. You got a
So
drum back
I
there, and I'm like, we're
do
ready to
have
do
a
some
drum.
kind of ritual or something.
So we do drumming. So I like drumming is something that like, there's a lot of science behind drumming. And that's something that we've helped my son that's autistic with a lot is drumming. There's lots of science behind that.
Yeah. So we've
So
gotten way off of the original topic, which was the tool.
when
So
don't we? When don't we? So that's the real cue. That's the real cue. All right. So yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, I could go on and on business tools, and we've done some other episodes very specific on very
yeah,
specific tools, like, hey, we use Canva for this, or we use Adobe for this. And
yeah,
if I think about it, I'll go back and try to find that and kind of link that in the comments if somebody wants to watch something very
right.
specific on some tools. But actually liked this conversation on a higher level example of the tools because I think it's important to, if you don't have the foundational pieces in place, it doesn't matter what tool you pay for, it's not going to work.
Then you're going to burn through them. Like, you're going to
Mhm.
spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on the next tool, the next system, the
Yep.
next process, and you're still going to be in the exact same spot because
Yep.
you're not using the tool, or it doesn't fit with where you're going, or there's not a value fit. Lots of reasons.
It's like that example I said with the gym. You have to make the commitment that you want to get fit, you want to, get more healthy, you want to eat better. You have to make that commitment and get the foundational pieces in place. Buying the gym membership is not going to make you healthy. Buying the gym membership is not going to, get your labs to where they look good. It's not going to, help you meet your goals. You have to get the foundational pieces in place first. That's all I got. I don't know if you got anything else, but I know we've been
No, I'm
talking.
good. I'm good. My throat's about ready to give out on me, but I'm good.
I know. I see you keep pausing and hacking. So, all right. Well, we're going to give Tim's voice a break, and we will see you again next week for another episode. See y'all later. Oh, did you want to say something?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. That was the psych.